A lot of people say as long as you learn, you didn't fail. And I think that's one thing that, throughout my time in the military, throughout my time as an entrepreneur, I realized that if you don't look back and reflect on the lessons learned, hey, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Then how are you going to grow? You have to be willing to admit defeat. You have to be willing to address, where did you mess up?
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Wesley co-founded VFR Capital Investments, a syndication company that is owned by a team of veterans and first responders. He serves as CEO and has led his team in growing their portfolio from 0 to 862 units in just a little over 15 months, estimated about $70 million in assets under management. Wesley, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, man, pleasure's mine. 3 questions I ask every guest who comes to the show, 90 seconds or less. Where did you start? Where are you now? How did you get there?
Where did I start? I started at the bottom. Where am I at now? Closer to the top. How did I get there? A lot of hard work, racking my brain, and most importantly, having the right team by my side. Because it's not a matter of when you hit problem. It's not a matter if you have problem. It's a matter of when. So who you have with you fighting those is really going to determine on how successful you are.
Man, I love that. That's absolutely right. Tell me, when did you decide to take the plunge from smaller deals into larger deals?
So yeah, like a lot of people, I think, they started with residential, really wholesaling. I was more like a plus one. My wife was the one that was really in real estate. I was on a contract to go to Amazon. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just here, So as I was networking, it was really, that was the story. But got a phone call July 19th of 2019, said, hey, do you want to do some syndication? I said, do I need a license for that? They laughed. I was serious. But showed up the very next day and just started networking. Had about 250 cards in my pocket after the first event. First conversation went something like this. Hey, what do you guys do? They said, we're investors. I'm LP'd in this many doors, all that. What do you do? Oh, I'm going to be raising capital for a group that's, syndicating multifamily. They asked me, the typical questions. What's your cash on cash? What's your target IRR? What's your total returns, holding times? I didn't know a single thing that they had said. So I reverted back to my old days of being a leader in the military. You never could say, I don't know. You could say, I will get you the answers. So that's exactly what I said. Those are great questions. I'd really like to get you the right answers. So whenever we get closer to ironing out our numbers, I'd like to be able to get those to you. Do you have some way for I can reach out to you later on? Boom, boom, boom. 5 cards, went back to the group that invited me there. Said, yeah, I have no clue what cash on cash, IRR. So back and forth I went for a good hour and a half of that event, and still by the end of it was having full-blown conversations. So cared more about the journey ahead and building momentum than how dumb I looked asking what people would call dumb questions. So that's where I started. And that was, what is that? Almost 3 years ago now. So
wow. And so you started off raising capital for somebody else.
Yes, sir.
And is that what you do now?
No, like I am now, I'm more the CEO route. Found out that I was better with my brain doing the operations, overseeing the formulas, the processes. I've got the whole Six Sigma training. I was going to go work at Amazon as one of their operations managers. And so a lot of tracking performance, tracking efficiency, driving that all forward. And so that's kind of what I did to our team and our processes, is put a manufacturing engineer mindset to it. And we really started cranking out some deals. But it wasn't until I put, I guess, my own team together that I ever closed a deal. First year and a half of syndicating with other teams, I was not successful.
What do you mean by that? You were not successful? I mean, if you're putting deals together with other teams, did all the deals fall through? Did they just?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, as I was raising capital for that first role, for that first team, there were some things that I found out later on once we really got into due diligence of our first deal. kind of noticed there were some unethical things that had been done in the underwriting, some unrealistic things that had been changed in the underwriting to just make numbers work. And, I kind of rapidly dove into everything to where I could, read the underwritings at least, started catching on to those things. So yeah, I had to say, hey, look, I can't move forward with this deal in my better judgment, and told my investors in good faith, I cannot advise you to invest in this deal. Some of them kind of said, okay. Most of them respected that. And one of them is actually now one of my partners on my company today. So one of the co-founders of our company, Robert Newbern, was actually originally going to be a passive investor. So, lesson I kind of learned. Fail is, you have many different, definitions to that. But did I close a deal? No, I did not close a deal until I started my own team with the right people. So up to that point, it was more of I was learning. It was a trial and fail and learn and move forward. So
what gave you the confidence to keep moving forward? I mean, as the new guy to the space, you're learning from some other people, then you get involved, and you put time, effort, and energy. You're going to conferences, you're shaking hands, you're talking about deals, you're, having investor conversation. Then you get halfway through it and you're like, oh, wait, I don't like any of this, and I don't want to work with these guys anymore. I mean, that's a lot of setback for somebody new to the industry. What gave you the confidence to say, no, I'm onto something, I just haven't figured out the right way to do it yet?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. Sometimes I made the joke that I was just too dumb to quit. I guess it's that inner Marine in us. We hate failure. I mean, you got to practically kill us before we'll stop trying.
Right.
And I think that's what it was, is I still saw every step of the way. I did learn. I did grow. So I was scaling up even without, closing something. I went from just in investor relations to, operations of a hospitality company to a co-manager of $100 million fund. So I was still scaling up and building up experience and building up skill sets, learning more, rapidly growing. So I still believed in me at the end of the day. But I'll be honest, a lot of it had to do with my wife. My wife really supported me through all of that. At the end of the day, she kind of let me know, you can do this. You've got what it takes. My family didn't feel the same sentiment of that. A lot of my family flat out told me, you're an idiot. What are you doing? You walked away from a guaranteed paycheck with Amazon and all the bells and whistles to do this. What are you doing? So sometimes you got to look yourself in the mirror and just really go, what do you want? What can you live with at the end of the day? What can you live with? Can you live with saying I failed chasing a dream, or I was too scared to try? Which regret do you want to have? And I felt like I would rather chase this thing down to the bitter end until I could catch it, beat it, and make it mine before I wanted to say, nah, I gave up.
I think that's a valuable lesson. And I'm butchering this quote, but it's something like failure weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Mm-hmm. Something to that idea. One
of the things that I think I've read, the little motivational quotes that, and it's funny because I hate rah-rah, but some of those quotes still get me. Okay. They still get me. And I think the one that really helped me when I needed it, it said, Winston Churchill says, success is going into a new endeavor with the same enthusiasm you started the last. Mm. And I was like, well, there you go. So, a lot of people say, as long as you learn, you didn't fail. And I think that's one thing that, throughout my time in the military, throughout my time as an entrepreneur, I realized that if you don't look back and reflect on the lessons learned, hey, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Then how are you going to grow? You have to be willing to admit defeat. You have to be willing to to address, where did you mess up? Versus what's that? And, that's something that I've always been able to do, is look back on whether it was a successful takeover, it was a complete fail. Where could I have made that process better? What could I have done? What could I have had differently in place to make overall something move better in the future?
That's a great stance, and one that is often sorely lacking in today's society is just that personal responsibility piece. What is though, perhaps, some bad advice that you received during the scaling process? Has there been anything that you're just like, man, somebody told me this and that was completely bogus?
It's okay to overpay.
Elaborate, please.
Yeah. So one thing I will say, and whatever advice you're taking it from, vet out who is giving it.
Right.
So if someone's telling you it's okay to overpay, meaning, you know what, if it's a good deal and you believe in it, then it's okay to get more aggressive on your price. I'm like, okay. But then I stood back and I reflected on who was telling me that. Well, it was the guy that required me to use his broker to buy his deal. Right. That gets paid on commission based on price. So of course he's going to tell you it's okay to overpay. But yeah, I would say that right there is probably one of them that's still, it's like, no, I mean, in real estate and really anything, you make your money on the buy.
Right.
You make your money on the buy because there is a ceiling to a market. There is a ceiling to an industry, and including into every asset. So you've got to know what that is and believe in your numbers. Stick to a criteria and don't fall from it. You know, since we're big on quotes right now, was Abe Lincoln said, it was like, find your stance and stand firm or something like that. I probably butchered that one worse than you did. But, basically, that's a lot of the advice that I look at from the, true leaders and true successful people. Warren Buffett is a good one. And I think right now in today's times, it's never been more true than be cautious when others are greedy, right, and greedy when others are cautious.
Right.
And as we are going through this, syndication has never been more hot of a topic. And I was looking at some people that were studying just syndication. They say there's going to be a 60% increase of syndicators in the next 2 years. So it's like, wow. And everyone's just trying to, get their deal, get a deal.
Right.
So, and some just being out flat greedy. We've had the lowest interest rates in, whatever almost.
Right.
And now we're fixing to go from that switch to where, look, the feds have just announced they're going to raise again and be even more aggressive than the last raise. So, and they're not done. So now's the time to really be cautious and let others be greedy. And then later when the shoe's on the other foot and, maybe we could see, hey, it might be a buyer's market here soon. That's when it's time to get greedy with the right plan.
Yeah, that's for sure. Give me that in practical terms, though. I mean, you guys are still actively buying. You're still actively looking at deals. What are you guys doing differently now, maybe than what you weren't doing? Or what's something you guys are doing differently now that you weren't doing 6 months or a year ago?
Saying no. What I mean by that, to elaborate, is you're going to have some opportunities that come your way. And you got to understand, is it a valid opportunity or is it just a time suck? Is it a, risk? How much risk is with saying yes? How much risk comes with actually acquiring the assets? We've had a whole lot more deals that we had the opportunity to be a part of that we said no than the few that we were. I will be understanding, looking back to where I was looking for that first deal and so hungry and so almost desperate for it. It's hard to say no. It's hard not to try to make something work. But one thing that I've realized very early on, and I have just instilled it into every one of my team members, is you can't make a bad deal good, but you can make a good deal better. And that's really what it is of that is we screen more finely, we stick to our criteria. And at the end of the day, as a syndicator, you're not looking for deals for you. Whether you realize that or not, you're not looking for deals for you. You're looking for deals for your investors. So what are your investors ultimately looking for? Because if you don't have a seller, if you don't have an investor, you better have the money yourself. So, that's a lot of what we had to get, more fine tune of what we're looking at and branching out to say, you know what, there are more markets than just my backyard.
What do you guys do? Yeah, I like that. Maybe that's maybe you're going to answer this question already, but what are you guys doing to be competitive? Like when you do put in an offer on a property, especially in multifamily, it's unlikely you're the only offer. So what are you guys doing to be competitive?
So a lot of that goes back before you even make that offer. A lot of that goes back, and what people realize is this is a game of relationships. with other co-sponsors, but more importantly, with the gatekeepers. That's what I call my brokers. Ultimately, the brokers are the gatekeepers to the good deals. If they don't have a good feeling about you and your capabilities, and ultimately, obviously, it's not just me, but when I say you, I mean my team, your team, then they're never going to push your package forward in front of that seller. Example right now, I was a good 300, I think maybe 500,000 under some of the other offers going into best and final. But the broker liked our team to the point where he encouraged the seller to still take our offer, even at a lesser amount, because of who we are and what we have done. So even if you are looking at your first deal, co-sponsor with someone that has been there, that has a successful track record. That's how you can still overcome that. But take the time to really build a relationship with your brokers, because that'll go a long way when the time really counts. And do more than just put in an offer. When I put in my offer, I have a nice brochure that says, who is VFR Capital Investments? What do we stand for? Why us? The bios of every member, the team, and our portfolio in a nice PDF brochure versus just a letter, just a Word document bio, or even worse, an email. Hey, this is who I am in the body of an email. So take the time. You get one first impression to that seller. I've had sellers actually come to properties and come up and say, hey, while we were doing our due diligence, and they recognized us from the logo on my shirt, and was like, oh, you're the VFR Capital Investments team. Yes. Hey, you know what, guys? I really want to let you know, I really liked your story, and your brochure really impressed me. I had higher offers, but because y'all look like y'all were more prestige and more sophisticated, I ended up going with y'all. I've been told that twice now on two different properties during the due diligence, that the sellers had to come out just to meet us.
That's cool. And that's a good golden nugget, getting, developing your relationships with, as you call it, the gatekeepers, and doing more than just putting in your offers and finding ways. And those are relatively almost cost-free ways, to stand out. Some people are taking much more aggressive stances and putting down, hey, we're going to throw down $500,000 of hard money day one, whatever it is, trying to stroke the bigger check, which is, that may be necessary too. That's another card in the deck of cards you can play. But I like what you're talking about there. Just an easy way to stand out.
Yeah. And I didn't have the deep pocket to go. I mean, I started this, I was making $24,000 a year. I was broke. So, having the deep pockets to be like, you know what, I'll just throw a little bit more. Let me slide this over there. So I worked what I had. Right. And then I had the ability to take the time to actually get to know who I was going to be working with. And that was, to me, in some cases to others, more important than how much dollars were on an offer.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one great piece of advice? We asked this question earlier, a bad piece of advice you received. What's probably the best piece of advice you feel like you've been given?
That's a good one. I think it would probably be, that it's okay to say no. I know I kind of discussed that. That's really something that I've struggled with, but it's okay to say no. It's not an admittance of failure if you're saying no to something that is ultimately a dead end.
Right.
And that's something that I know some people might not relate to, but everything that dangles in front of you is not something that you need to chase. It could just truly be a carrot on the stick.
Right. Right. Yeah. With a stick at the end of the carrot, you got to watch out for that stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. Wesley, thanks for taking the time to come on today, really break down your story, how you have found success, the things you're doing to remain competitive, protect your downside, giving us some kind of insight on what you do to establish relationships with brokers, and really just kind of your investment thesis and mindset that you've taken and implemented to get you to where you are today. If our listeners want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah. So I've got my email, Wesley, Wesley, at VFRcapitalinvestments.com. And you can look us up on Facebook or LinkedIn. We're there as well. And I'd be happy to connect. And if there's anything I can do to help another co-sponsor with their first deal or their 100th deal, we're always happy to sponsor, co-sponsor a deal and hopefully add value, as well as hopefully maybe learn from another person's strategy. So that's what we're about.
Awesome. Wesley, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Sam.